Yo. A base, a short.
I've cut down.
Shoreline.
It was like a closed-in forest. It's just crazy.
Burned up towards.
Look at that, quarter of an acre, 3 parcels.
Yeah.
I forget, no one's across the street. He's good behind me.
No, he's between Jefferson and Ella,
Oh, it's one more block.
the big black roof.
She already started with
Yeah, okay, you're 1 block. Okay.
this. There's somebody gets killed.
I just never paid attention to what streets. I just know where his house is.
Oh, I'm bad with that.
Pretty sure fire it was too. 2 separate fires about 150 apart. Okay, we're gonna chain your dragon. You
It's
do
not
both
gonna go
and-
that far, yeah.
You got your elk yet?
and start
No, I don't.
You
12
can't-
feet
You can't
off of
shoot
the
a
road.
cigar that far.
There's so much
anyway.
older than that,
So, yeah.
12 feet off the
I
road.
so,
and
it's not great, my dad tore his bicep muscle off,
Oh,
No,
so
the
he can't,
the choice is
so we're doing right.
back in that.
Jill. Yeah.
Burned down. That's what I fight with all the time.
I ran into some bow hunters in Ruby Creek today when I was up working, and
Okay.
they were both bugling on the road, and they bugled each other in. It was great.
That's awesome.
that is hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's right on the road.
Clean.
Sneak up on it.
Yeah, I see your.
We got
you
one,
doing
we
the
got
alley.
one figured out now. We got one more to do at Winter Ridge.
For the surplus store.
And I'm supposed to get paid tomorrow. What a waste of money. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that little chunk right there is a mess. Always
Unbelievable.
has been.
And then we got to do a little asphalt and a catch basin on the back side. There's tons of stuff in the way there.
Oh, that alley's a mess.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Oh, it's a mess. That always has been too.
You know, they held that money for 3 years and gave us 20 days to do the project. Thank you, guys.
Where it is staying.
And,
You know what? Flags are backwards. Here, the flag's supposed to be over here. On the right of the dais. Not the left. State flag's supposed to be.
there's that one in the far right, guys, upstairs now. It was the audio
So
video.
we've got 2 people calling in, now or later. Cheryl and Suzanne are gonna, Cheryl's not, okay, but Suzanne's gonna call in later. All right. Okay, let's go. So it is now 5:30 or so, and the date is September 17th, 2020. This is the regularly scheduled and duly advertised meeting of the Bonner County Planning and Zoning Commission. Welcome all tonight, everyone. So if you join me, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll start out with a roll call from my left.
Commissioner Kempton.
Commissioner Linscott?
Commissioner,
Is presiding, and I think we're going to have one more commissioner a little later online. Is she on now? No, she said she's going to be a little late. Okay, so that means we do have a quorum. The agenda, if you looked at it, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files on the agenda. Due to circumstances with staff, we would like to move the last one, the AM 13-20 and ZC 10-20 comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change for McHenry up to the top, the first one, so that staff can deal with that and then go to another meeting. So before that, though, we have a consent agenda where we look at the minutes from the September 8th P&Z meeting. Everyone had a chance to look at those. They're pretty brief. Any changes necessary? Hearing none, I'll sign them off as complete. Up there. Okay, so that finishes our consent agenda. And let's see. So you just walked in the room. We're going to take up the case that's on the file on the board first. So for staff, okay? All right, so that puts us into the hearing mode. And as I said, we're changing the agenda to bring up the file that's on the screen first. There's another page that can go up on the screen, and it's the procedure. There we go. So was that? Oh, we don't have the big ones up yet. So I hope you can all see that. It outlines the hearing procedure. Staff makes a presentation, the staff report. Applicant provides an overview of the project, and we, the governing body, can ask questions. Public testimony is then, so if you want to, on whatever case is up, if you want to do that, come up to the front, give your name and address for the record, and state your whatever it is you got to say. Once that's done, the applicant can respond to comments made, questions asked, whatever. If there's no questions, then there's no need for the applicant to respond. And once that's done, we close the public hearing, public testimony portion, and we start deliberating amongst the commission. So also so on this file, AM 13-20 and ZC 10-20, are there any conflicts of interest on the part of the commission? No. Okay. And if anyone in the audience needs any help participating tonight, let the staff know and we'll do what we can to help you out. And we're not mic'd up tonight, so if you're having a hard time hearing, just let us know. We'll ratchet it up a little bit. And let's see, I guess that's about it for the procedures. So the first thing up then is a staff report on this file.
Thank you, commissioners. This is Jason Johnson, Bonner County Planning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Good.
So this is the presentation for files AM 13 and ZC 10-20, comp plan amendment and zone change for Patrick and Julie McHenry. The applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to change the comp plan map from ag forest to rural residential. And they are requesting a zone change from ag forest 10 to rural 5 to go along with that. This application was noticed by mail, site posting, and newspaper. And there you see an aerial photo of the site in question. Some basic data about the site. It's a residential use. The parcel is unplatted. It's about a 20-acre parcel. Access is served by Upper Gold Creek Road, which is owned and maintained by Bonner County, and by Coyote Trail that is private and not county maintained. The site currently has a well and septic on site. The site is served by Northside Fire, powered by Northern Lights, and is in school district number 84. Here we see zoning and comp plan maps from the county GIS showing the current zoning and the current comp plan designation on the property in question. This shows environmental features of the property in question. Only environmental feature is an intermittent stream on the southern end of the parcel. There's no steep slopes, wetlands, or floodplain. This is a soils map of the parcel in question. The parcel is not considered to be prime farmland according to NCRS. The listed agencies there were routed for comment on this proposal. None of the agencies commented except for Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. They sent 5 pages of just standardized development recommendations and development requirements. None of those comments directly address the question of the rezone and comprehensive plan change that are at question here tonight. Several public comments were received on this. A summary of the comments and who sent them in with dates is listed up there. Comments tended to go along the same lines. Concerns about water table in the area, fire danger, concerns about septic systems in the area, increased traffic, concerns about the road conditions, and concerns about the maintenance of rural character. One comment arrived today. I added it in there, but it's up to the chair whether or not that should be added into the record or not. None of the comments received directly addressed how the proposal was inconsistent with county code or the comprehensive plan. Getting into the review standards on this proposal, the site is currently designated ag forest, and we're being requested to change its comp plan designation to rural residential. The ag forest land use designation recognizes areas where steeper slopes prevail, 30% or greater, and where transportation is provided by either private roads or U.S. Forest Service or state roads. Urban services are not available, and residential development challenges are present on the site due to slope or soil, hazard areas, or lack of police and fire services. Rural residential, on the other hand, it provides for residential development in areas where urban services are not available and where slopes may vary up to 30%. These areas include hazard areas and critical wildlife habitats, where lower densities reduce potential impacts to resources and exposures to loss of property or lives. Small-scale agricultural uses and residential development are permitted. Looking at the criteria in the comp plan for the ag forest land use designation, this site does not appear to match the listed characteristics for an ag forest land use designation. The site in question has no mapped steep slopes at all, above or below 30%. The site in question is in fact served by a county maintained, county owned road. And the site in question has no known hazard areas. It is within a fire district. Based on this, there doesn't appear to be a reason under the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan land use definitions for why this parcel should remain under an ag forest land use designation. Comparing this to the requested designation of rural residential, this site does appear to match those characteristics. We have slopes that vary up to 30%, that's true. No mapped steep slopes, no urban services. Small scale agricultural and residential development are permitted, and the site in question is currently used for such purposes. It's heavily forested with a residential use. Based on this, there doesn't appear to be a reason in the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan land use definitions for why this parcel should not be under a rural residential land use designation. As far as the zoning goes, ag forest zoning is appropriate in areas that are designated as either prime ag forest or ag forest land in the comprehensive plan. As previously stated, there doesn't appear to be a reason under the comp plan for why this parcel should remain under an ag forest land use designation. If this parcel isn't appropriate to remain under this designation, it follows that ag forest zoning is also not appropriate for this site. This parcel should be under the rural residential land use designation, as it more closely matches the definition given in the comp plan. If it's true that this parcel should in fact be rural residential designation under the comp plan, then that requires that it should be rezoned to remain consistent with the comp plan. There are two choices for rural zoning inside the rural residential designation. There's R10 and there's R5. R10 is characterized by sites with slopes that are steeper than 30%, located within critical wildlife habitat, contains prime agricultural soils, served by a network of public or private roadways that generally do not meet applicable roadway standards, within the floodway, or that contain limited access to public services. R5 should be used in rural residential designations that are either already developed at 1 dwelling unit per 5 acre density, or that do not meet the criteria for R10 shown above. This site should be zoned R5 because it has no steep slopes. It is not prime farmland. It is served by a public roadway, Upper Gold Creek Road, that is county maintained. The site has no floodplain or floodway on it. It is served by Northside Fire District. None of the following agencies had any wildlife habitat concerns that are listed there below. So in summary, a review of the land use section of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan reveals that the characteristics of this parcel are not consistent with its current land use designation of ag forest. This review of the land use section of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan further reveals that the characteristics of this parcel are consistent with the land use designation of rural residential. This parcel therefore should be designated as rural residential. Since the land use designation of rural residential is appropriate for this property, this leaves zoning choices of rural 10 or rural 5 as appropriate for this property. This property has now the characteristics listed in code to be zoned rural 10. This parcel therefore should be zoned as rural 5. Based on this, staff recommends approval of the request for a comprehensive plan map amendment from Ag Forest 1020 to rural residential and a zone change from Ag Forest 10 to rural 5. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jason. So at this time, the applicant will come forward and add to that presentation if necessary, or comment if necessary. So what do you get the applicant? Is that? Are you, I'm the applicant. Okay, yep, all right. I'm Patrick McHenry, the owner of the property, subject property. See, there's kind of a full house here. I've got some neighbors that aren't too happy about what we're doing. I'm going to give you a real quick history on this property. Bought the property in 2006. At that time, the zoning was allowable to split the 5 acre parcels. I got 3 daughters, 24-year-old, 18, soon to be 19, and a 16-year-old. The reason we bought that property initially, and trust me, it's been went through the downturn in the economy, everything else, lost it, got it back. The whole purpose of buying the property was so that if I could leave anything to my 3 daughters, it's going to be a 5 acre piece of land for them. This isn't a split to turn around and sell and make a bunch of money on. Not interested in that. A lot of my neighbors are here tonight, and as far as the impact on the property, there's not going to be any more traffic than there already is. All 3 of my girls drive. My oldest daughter's boyfriend drives. My wife and I drive. I'm not, if accessing our property from, which we have great access from Upper Gold Creek, and we stop using the private stretch of Coyote, which by the way is on our 20 acres, runs right through the whole length of the 20. And so be it, or if I have to maintain a little better than it is, then again, so be it. But the point of the split, again, was not to, I'm a builder, my wife's a real estate agent, everybody's scared that we're gonna build them out and sell them and, you know, get people from all over come in and change the dynamics of the neighborhood. Not the intention. So that's all I gotta say. I like everything that Jason said. Okay? And I agree with you. call again. Let us know what's on mind. I would like to. Hi, Dr. White. My name is Dale Lockwood. We have 20 acre parcel up there and 5 acre parcel. We purchased back before a lien that 5 acre parcel because we have livestock in that meadow. It's just below and to the west of the Henry's. And it's a seasonal stream, Oak Creek is. It does still flow year round, but not to our meadow. So we purchased that 5 acres to feed our livestock while we could. And so I would have concerns about depleting that groundwater more so by more structures in there. Other than that, it'd be just setting a precedent for that area and the properties around it. We're all up there to, have those big pieces of property, and there's still a lot of cause and effect that happens because of that. We've got some shooters in the neighborhood and different things, and we all just kind of put up with that. It's understandable. But, I don't have anything against sharing the property with family. We do that ourselves. So, anyone else? Yeah.
My name's Skip Lassen. My name on the plat map is Max Lassen. Max and my wife Denise, we're both here. We don't oppose what you're doing, Pat. And I'd like to thank Pat too for kind of waking up the neighborhood and kind of getting everybody's attention off. But yeah, we haven't been talking about that. So no, we have a big community up there, and what it boils down to is a single common denominator is the increase in population density. We love the fact you want to do that for your family. And if you look at the plat maps up there, what you find is people have done that specifically to get away from R5 zoning. The R5 zoning, like I said, we that's part of our family up there. It's too bad that we have to cut down here to put up with this kind of stuff. But the R5 thing is the one that scares us the most with that increased population density. We live in a very delicate ecosystem up there, and we're pushing this urban wilderness interface. What is that? That's people living in the woods. You get a lot of people up there, it causes more problems to that environment. We're all on the Ponderay, the Pack River Ponderay watershed. I'm surprised you could sign off on this so fast because you're usually pretty quick about that. You get that increased population density, it affects in a negative way that onto our watershed. That's one. Increased fire hazard. I mean, I had a crash course in fire route migration. Anybody here can tell you, you talk to the forestry people, they don't have to be there to tell you the nightmares of fire route migration. Some of my neighbors can tell you, I'm one of them. I had a fire on my property, and I know about learning things the hard way. And I get it too. Like I said, we all like Pat. It's just the R5 zoning up in that area. You guys gotta come up and check it out. With my neighbors, we drive 20 miles to town. 20 miles to town. On a good day, it takes you a half hour. On a bad day, in the wintertime, it could take you half a day. But we put up with that because we appreciate not increased population density. If I wanted an increase in population density, I would move to town. And that's the way we feel about it. But, it kind of puts us all in a tough situation because we love Pat and Julie. I mean, they're great. The family's great. I love the idea of doing that first family. But when you do a decision like that that affects all of us in what could be a negative way, then that's what brings us down here, And, elected officials, you guys have to look at that too. We're citizens in the greatest nation on earth. We're not subjects. We vote, and decisions, have consequences. And, I'm just glad we can come down here and say things like this. So that's our put. And anybody else, thanks for letting me have on.
All right, so who else wants that? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Debbie Gallo, and I'm speaking for my husband and myself. Like all the other neighbors, we are against this rezone. None of us are happy with your comprehensive plan. We don't like 5 acres at all. For Gold Creek anyway, none of us moved here to have a neighbor 5 acres away. And here are my reasons for being against this rezone. Our private road will now have 3 to 6 more vehicles on it, and my 3 neighbors and myself do most of all the road work and maintenance on it, and it's Coyote Trail. This rezone will cause 1/3 more the amount of traffic on a 1-lane access road. Another concern is the abundant wildlife we all enjoy, and 3 more homes and on 5 acre minimums will just, with fenced yards, will just inhibit the wildlife being able to travel back and forth along with their young. And it will affect them adversely. Also, our 3 new wells and the water usage. There's no aquifer below or near us. We are in a drainage area, and water usage by 3 more wells is a major concern. And lastly, for us, Gold Creek starts above Raven Ridge. And it flows down along Coyote Trail and through this proposed division, and we are all concerned about its quality after flowing near 3 more septics and 3 more leaching fields. Thanks.
Okay, who else would like to speak? One more coming up.
Hello, my name is Linda Bell Smith. I live like 220 acres above Pat, and like I said, we all love Pat and family, and that he's doing it for his family. I guess the biggest fear is setting the precedent. Is there any guarantee, or let me ask you guys a question, okay? When this is passed, because he meets all the criteria that you have for all your stuff. When somebody else puts in for the 5 acres, do you look at each one individually, or are we gonna blanket up there and just go, hey, let's rezone that whole place to 5 acres? That's our biggest fear. Well, I guess you don't answer. No, okay. That's basically where I'm coming from on that, you know. And we live up there in the forest, you know, we're in a forested thing. You know, you have the 1 acre with your house, and then 19 acres is forest, you know. The more we do 5 acres, and like I said, do this, but don't do any more, you know, kind of thing. You know, and then the wildlife, you know, I see moose come in my yard, the whitetail, the mule deer, all the ones that you have on your thing on why we are there, we have them there. So these are concerns, and like I said, we've got a lot of influx of people coming from out of state right now. They're trying to get away from their state, because their states, let me use say this loosely, suck. So they're coming here because ours is wonderful, right? So that's the fear of the precedent set here. You guys could promise me that you would not okay every 5 acre parcel. I say go for it. Okay. That's my.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Oh, we have one online. She gonna be on the phone or?
I don't. How do I do it?
Or you just gonna type in for comment?
So just respond to her down in the chat on yours. We're, I don't, there's no option. And she's not plugged in. Her speaker not plugged in.
right, technical. I don't know if it's difficult, but-
The laptop, there we go. Okay. Wait, but why isn't that option here? Is she gonna be able to?
Okay.
Because you're in
Can you
charge.
hear me now?
All
Yes.
right, yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. All right. I appreciate your working on my behalf. I'm Molly O'Reilly and I own property and have lived at 616 Raven Ridge. And I object to both the proposed zoning plan change to 5-acre parcels and the proposed comp plan amendment. The parcel is more than wet in the springtime with water running from it onto Upper Gold Creek Road, which means that part of it is probably not suitable for septic and the soil conditions can be considered poor for residential. And under the county's ordinances, wanting property for family is not a basis for dividing below the allowed zoning acreage. So that contention shouldn't be a factor in your decision at all. That should just be off the table as something you're considering. And I'm kind of shocked that staff appears to be advocating checkerboard parcel by parcel zoning. The comp plan is mainly composed of blocks of one zone and plan designation. And because one is fairly flat and the one next to it has 30% slopes, if you're looking at a comp plan change, you're talking about rezoning everywhere in our county based on each parcel. Is that where you want to go with this decision? Is that what you're talking about? And we're abandoning the comp plan if we spot zone that way. Additional reasons, this is in the wildland urban interface and fire control is difficult and dangerous, and allowing more dwellings than zoning calls for today adds to the danger. The closest fire station's 9.5 miles away, mainly on gravel roads. It's really unlikely firefighters could arrive in time to save a home. The application mentions bus service, that's the school bus. Commercial timber operations exist in the area and have for decades. It is a timber forest area. And the Selly Samuels area comp plan comes pretty close to right here and calls for 10-acre minimums and no variances, no changes to smaller. This area is even further from stores, schools, and paved roads than Selly Samuels. And all travel from here goes through Selly Samuels, which desires to, quote, maintain low traffic congestion. So I encourage you to deny both the zone plan change and the comp plan amendment request, as they're inconsistent with today's comp plan and the amendment that's been put together over several years by a community committee in Selly Samuels close by. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Molly. Okay, anyone else?
Am I able to respond to that?
Yeah, you will, again, just make sure anybody else, somebody else had again.
I have a neighbor's letter, does he have? Would that be okay?
Yeah, well, enter it. You want to read it or just? enter
Well,
it?
I can give it to you or I can read it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it has to be entered in the record anyway.
Okay, so what do you want me to do?
So let the staff give it an official stamp.
Okay.
Part of the record. Let me ask this, then, in your opinion, does the levy say anything different than what we heard already? Okay, let's just enter it in the record. Thank you. So anyone else?
This is the
Anyone else?
Okay. So if that's the rest of the comments, then the applicant does have the chance to talk with you all about it.
I'm gonna try and address these, each individually. I'll start with Dale. So Dale's got, like you said, he's got the 20, he's got a 5. He's across, he's up and around the corner from us. He's not adjacent, he's quarter mile away, whatever it is. I understand his concerns and I respect Dale. Skip talked about how we're all here in this great country. We can do, it's great that we can come together and we can make decisions as a group here. I respect that too. The reason we moved back to North Idaho after 20 years of building over in Seattle, Tacoma is the obvious. We lived on Rapid Lightning Road back in the early 90s. Rapid Lightning Road, as you guys know, is dotted with 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s. We had an 8.5 acre piece right there at the base of Plume Creek. We had friends at Plume Creek that were on 5 or some less. So I understand the concern, but I also look at the dynamics of Bonner County and what the past zoning has done. I don't feel that anything impacted Rapid Lightning Creek terribly, considering the need for the expansion and that. Debbie talked about the drainage, and she talked about Gold Creek well, Gold Creek, a stretch of it runs right through our neighbor's property, which has a 5.6 acre and a 2 acre and I think another 5 somewhere in there. The Keeners, I don't know if they responded, but they just got done logging their property a couple of years back, and you look at that drainage, and it's nothing special. So when we talk about fish and what the impact on the drainage, I don't know if anybody made a speak about the quality of that drainage up there. So when I look at my property and what we want to do, we talk about fire danger. Well, you look at these larger parcels and it's a tinderbox. You guys all know that. So when you talk about fire control and that, it's a whole lot easier to maintain a 5 acre piece than it is a 20 acre piece if you've got people working together. Well, in my case, it's going to be family. So I think the experience that, when we talk about, everybody that's made comments on fire, well, I'm going to be thinning out a good part of that 20 and cleaning it up so if something flows through, and it will one of these days, we're actually protected. We've actually done our good stewardship for the land. So environmentally speaking, our soils are good there. I don't know who that was on the speaker, but Molly over here. I don't think I ever know. So we have a seasonal drainage that does drain down into Gold Creek, the headwaters of Gold Creek, but it's seasonal. We don't have any intention on impacting that area, and I'm sure when we get to the point of building, I think I talked to one of the gals in the office. I was pulling a permit for another job. Anyway, long story short, she pulled our mapping up and she looked at it and she said that, yeah, it looks like for what you have there, you probably have to be off of it 40 feet. Well, that's totally doable. So as far as the impact to the neighbors and the road, like I said, Coyote Trail runs right through our property. I own to the other side, the Keener side of Coyote Trail. So, and if it's a maintenance thing and you're worried about travel up and down, Debbie, I don't have any problem pitching in or doing the work myself. I run equipment now. It's not a huge impact. It's not going to be any more, quite frankly, than when my kids, if we were to split into 2 pens and build it out, we have the potential to have, I think, 8 dwellings there, including 2 or total of 4 permanent RV spot. So the impact is the impact. And it's my family. And if anybody has a problem with me designating a 5-acre piece to each of my kids, and it's going to go into a trust, it's going to be in a trust till the day I die. So I'm obviously for getting this done. And I think as far as the concern with the spot zoning and that on a case-by-case basis, this is a growing county. And there's no, you can deny it all you want, but the county's growing and it's expanding. There's people, we're on the map. So to deny the reality that we're going to somehow stay up in our own little oasis up there, yeah, I like it. The reason we ended up fighting hard and keeping the property was because there wasn't any other place that I wanted to be. And so that the intention of building it and building it all out and selling it and fencing it. Somebody talked about fencing. That's not going to happen. I've never fenced the property that I own. So that's it. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so that finishes the public testimony portion. So we will now open the deliberation amongst the commissioners, who are, by the way, all volunteer people. They're not elected officials. So just to let you know. And the Sully Samuels Committee, they're volunteer people too. So we're all volunteer people. Yeah, as Mr. Beatles has mentioned, the work that the Sully Samuels Committee has done for the last 3 years is still on its way to this body for review. But by the way, there'll be a public meeting on that next week, next Thursday. I believe it's set now for 10 to 2 at the Odin Hall.
Correct, long overdue.
Well, it would have been earlier, but we had this thing that we were this. They were set to do it back in February, and then we all got slammed. So it's overdue, but we didn't see the work that they did. At Odin Hall, they're on Odin Bay Road, Odin Hall. Okay, 10 to 2 is when that's going to happen. On what day? Next Thursday, the 20th. Well, it was, but it's going to be re-advertised to change that thing. Last I heard.
The 24th at Odin Hall, huh?
Yeah.
Vice versa for programs too.
All right, it was advertised that it's going to be in the, but talking to the committee.
Okay. There's another meeting at the 19th of Saturday also. To enjoy,
All right.
to be interviewed.
All right, no more, thank you.
Yes, this Saturday at Odin Hall, 19th.
Okay, back to the case at hand.
So
Excuse me, folks, we're in a hearing here. All right, no more chit chat.
Hey, Don, I wonder if I could ask staff a question.
Sure.
Jason, I imagine you guys went through some deliberation about this being spot zoning or not. Can you give us some of your thoughts on that?
Spot zoning by definition requires a rezone to be inconsistent with the comp plan. We're not talking about a rezone here this evening. We're talking about a comp plan amendment. And then we're talking about the rezone that must accompany that comp plan amendment. There's no such thing as spot comp plan amending. And that's what we're proposing here tonight is consistent with exactly what the comprehensive plan says. If there's, I guess if there's anyone who doesn't like this or doesn't agree with it, I guess that's an argument to change the comp plan. But the comp plan is the rules that we've all agreed to live under here in the county. It applies to everyone and it applies to every parcel. This comp plan redesignation is consistent with what's written in the land use designations in the comp plan. That rezone is just something, it's a side effect of redesignating the property in a way more appropriate to what the comp plan actually says. Again, by definition, a spot zone requires that you do something inconsistent with the comp plan, and that's not what we're proposing here tonight.
Perfect, thank you, Jason.
Another question for Jason?
Jason, Commissioner Bailey, for the record, the applicant has the right to split his property into 2 tenths, correct?
Possibly, I mean, he hasn't applied for that. So
No,
I can't, I mean, he has the right to apply.
No, I understand, it's Act 4 is 1020, his right is, he could split that down to 10, correct?
Yes, most likely.
Okay, most likely. So that would give him 2 residences, 2 ADUs, and 2 RV places. So that's eight basically residents. So out of that, they could have 4 wells and 4 septic systems, correct?
That would be the determination of Idaho Department of Water Resources and Panhandle Health. I have no idea if the site would support that or not.
My point is here that just for us, we're just basically talking 10 spots, if they were put 10 spots. We're a lot less. But the load on the property is going to be the same. Whether it's 5 or 10. What do you want?
Okay. Other thoughts?
Jason, I got one more question for you. When you were doing your analysis, did you look at how many other 5 and 75 acre parcels there are within a mile or so of this property?
I did a visual examination of the area. It looked like within about a half mile of the property, about 20% of the parcels were sub 10 acre.
Yeah, can we get the parcel map up on the screen, Jason? Or whoever's running? Well, there we go. It's coming. Oh, yes, sir. Wow.
While that's coming up, there was a lot of concern about this setting precedent. So for the sake of the public who's listening to our deliberation, we might want to address that issue.
Yeah, and this file brings up the very dilemma that was paramount in the discussions about not just the Sully Samuels area, but Sagal, West County, Southwest County, Priest Lake. The existing comp plan, as has been adequately shown, has certain criteria that says, if it's this, then it's this. If it has this, this, and this, then it could be this. If it doesn't, then it's this. The criteria that are listed there, they don't lend themselves to, in a lot of cases, to making a hard line cut. It's very clear that it ought to be this or this. So the strength of the file is right out of the complaint, the words. So, okay, there's the parcel map. And the outline parcel, the subject parcel, you can see, and that's 20 acres, is that correct? 20 acres, okay. So you get the size feel, that's 20. So you can see other ones like up there, about a mile to the northeast. Those are all 5s, there's a bunch of square 5s. There's other 5s down below, there's 5s to the west, and some other small parcels. And as was mentioned, you go up Rapid Lightning Road and some of the other ones around it. In years past, for whatever reason, under whatever code, there were many small parcels built along the roads. And something that I discussed with the Sully Samuels Committee months and months ago. He just said, you know what is that? Why did it happen? And what's the benefit or the detriment of having it that way? The interesting part is many of those parcels along those main roads are occupied with a house. People live there because they want to live there. Now, they like living in the rural area. Obviously they do. They live there. And it's rural, no doubt don't live on 20, they don't live on 10, they don't even live on 5. So it's a dilemma. One, having very succinct criteria that says, because of this, or this land use designation in this zone, because of this, or this land use designation in this zone. It's not strong enough, and that's what we challenged the Sully Samuels committee to do, is come up with criteria that make it so that if it's gonna be a rural area that is low density, then the right words have to be put in the comprehensive plan to say so. And which would be used then to say, no, it's inappropriate to go to something of a higher density. Right now, we saw the criteria that the comp plan lists for staying 10 or being able to go 5. And as was stated, the criteria now would say that this could be allowed or should be allowed to go to rural residential land use designation in a 5-acre zone. So that's the dilemma, if you want to call it that, or the benefit, I guess, from another standpoint. I don't know, any other thoughts along those lines?
You know, I've been reading this Idaho Regulatory Takings Act guidelines once a week. This is the updated version from March 2020. And this is what our Attorney General says. Although most land use regulations does not constitute a taking of property, the courts have recognized that when the regulation divests an owner of the essential attributes of ownership, it amounts to a taking subject to compensation. One of the cases he refers to in here is a federal case called Hodel versus Irving. And states, where the character of government regulation destroys one of the most essential rights of ownership, the right to devise property, especially to one's family. This is an unconstitutional taking without just compensation. Now, our Attorney General gone ahead and put this in for his example on these cases that we must follow. You know, listening to Jason, everything's fitting, lining up with a comprehensive plan. I haven't heard any testimony that says what the public harm is going to be by allowing this to pass. I mean, we believe this is going to hurt the wildlife, we believe this is going to create more traffic, but we haven't seen any evidence to that.
You don't think more people are gonna affect traffic?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, we can't do that. No, we're discussing. And granted, you know, the issue of traffic, in my past life, I was a traffic engineer. And quite often in a public hearing, I'd have to explain what's a road, what can it do. There's perception by the landowners, and the physical ability of that travel way to pass vehicles. So, and it never fails to surprise the property owners the capacity that road really has to pass vehicles. It's always more than you think. It's unfortunate. I mean, I used to use the term, oh, that's a 2-dog road. That means there's 2 dogs that lay out there and take a nap any time of the day without being disturbed. That's a country road. And they know when their master comes along because they move. Otherwise, they lay there all day. Those are great roads, and we get used to them. And along comes another car, and we think we're in downtown Los Angeles. The other issue that's been talked about here is the precedent that was could set. It isn't done yet, there's no decision been made, but we are soon going to be hearing the Sully Samuels Committee's presentation on what they feel it should be and why. It isn't just, well, true, it's over, I forget what the boundary is, but it's to the west, down out of the hills, is what it is. But the principles in there, and then that's Sully Samuels. This group has to figure out the rest of the county that's not in those sub-areas. Sully Samuels, Sagal, Fish Lake, Fish River, Town, Southwest County. Quite a bit of county left, like this area. And we're faced with the dilemma of how do you address all this stuff when we know that along those roads there's many sub-5-acre parcels. It's all because it's terrain, it's creeks, and so forth, watersheds, whatever. And those pretty much dictate where property lines are. So we don't know at this point whether or not this was a question. Hopefully it wouldn't. Sorry, I can't take any more questions for deliberation. So anyway, you're hearing us ramble on. Any other thoughts? Anybody else have anything to say about the precedent? Yeah, there's lots through this area, through the whole Sully Samuels area. It's interesting because the land use map in the Sully Samuels proposal shows areas that are less than 10 acres. And it's a high percentage, not so high, but it's a notable percentage of the area in the Sully Samuels area that is already lots that are 5 acres or less. So it's, what do you do? Okay, so.
Mr. Chair, you ready for a motion?
Well, you're ready to make one.
I'd like to make a motion. This is Commissioner Kempton. I move to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on this project, file AM 0013-20, requesting a comprehensive plan amendment from Ag Forest 1020 to rural residential, finding that it is in accord with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code, as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time staff was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. This action does not result in taking up private property.
We have a motion on the floor to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for file AM 15-20. Is there a second?
Mr. Bradish, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval file AM 13-20 to the Board of County Commissioners. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So that's the component amendment. Now about the zone change.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. This is Commissioner Kempton. I move to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on this project, file ZC 0010-20, requesting a zone change from Ag Forest 10 to Rural 5, finding that it is in accord with general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code, as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and based upon the evidence made up to the time staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. This action does not result in taking of private property.
Motion on the floor to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on project ZC 10-20. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Winscott, I'll second that.
Motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. So let me explain now to the public. So we just made a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. They will hold a hearing subsequent to this, probably within 3 weeks is their normal.
Jeannie, is it scheduled? Is the meeting scheduled for the board? Decided?
For the assignment, sorry, and
Tentatively on the 21st.
so tentatively of October, 21st of October, this will tentatively now, and you look for a notice in the paper. Yeah, you get the same notice to the immediate neighbors and also to, it'll be in the paper. That's the next opportunity that you'll have to talk about this case and that's with the board that will or will not change the comp plan and the zone code. Okay. So consider it, think about the reasons why they did pretty well integrated tonight. And if you want to go talk to the commission about it at that meeting, that's also an open public meeting. Okay.
So can you clarify comment made that we're meeting on September 24th at 6 p.m.?
Oh.
You already know that?
We set it up.
Oh, okay, all right, because it said 10 to 2.
That's a different one.
Okay.
Saturday. That's the one that's on Saturday. The one
Oh.
on the 24th was put on by these guys.
Okay.
And that's an old.
That's at Odin Hall, yes. They're both at Odin Hall. One is
All
Saturday.
right. Okay, I made a mistake now. So meeting a week from today is at 6 o'clock at Odin Community Hall.
Yep,
And the other meeting is Saturday the 19th
yep,
at Odin at 10.
yep.
And those are both the Sully Samuel Committee?
They are both, yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you all for participating there.
Commissioner Davis, before you get much further, this is Commissioner Glasso. I joined late on that file, so I did not vote, but I wanted to let you know I am present for the next file.
Thank you very much. So now we'll go back to the file B22-20 depth to width variance. And for our procedure, we're last year, before, so it's the same. There it is. Okay. So yeah, any conflicts of interest on this case?
Mr. Kohler and his firm has been doing some planning and surveying for him.
On this particular
May.
property. All right, then, let's proceed with the staff report, please.
My name is Tessa Vogel. I'm a planner with Bonner County Planning, and this is a depth to width variance. The project was routed to agencies and the public, and also published in the newspaper on August 18th, and the posting was put out at the site on the 13th of August. So the applicant is requesting a depth to width variance to allow for a depth to width ratio of 4.5 to 1 for the proposed lot 1, and a 4.7 to 1 ratio for lot 2, where the depth to width ratio requirement is 3 to 1. And this would be for a future minor land division. The property is a vacant parcel per Bonner County Assessor records, and it is zoned rural 5 with a land use designation of rural residential. We've got individual well and septic will be the services for the properties. The Selkirk Fire District services the site, as does Northern Lights. This is the environmental features for the property. You can see that almost the entire property is covered in a floodplain. We've got some wetlands on there, and we are on the waterfront. For the variance, for the conditions that apply to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the vicinity, the neighboring properties contain lots or parcels with similar dimensions. The proposed variance will simply allow the subject property to be split into 2 waterfront lots subject to a minor land division approval. Due to the original configuration of the parent parcel, it is not possible to create 2 waterfront lots with a 3 to 1 depth to width ratio. As noted, neighboring properties contain lots or parcels with similar dimensions to the applicant. Staff said that the parcel directly north of the subject property has frontage of approximately 376 feet with a total acreage of 12.56 acres, and the parcel that's south of the subject property has frontage of approximately 1,800 feet with a total acreage of 15.4 acres. This variation of the frontage size between the properties to the north and south are due to what essentially is considered the front and the rears for how they access the property. There are multiple properties within the vicinity that have similar dimensions and layouts as the subject property. These would also require depth to width ratios of 3:1 if they were to be subdivided in a similar manner. Other properties in the vicinity also have water frontage, wetlands, and floodplain present, but the subject property does have larger portions of submerged land, which reduces the total net acreage available for the proposed lots. For the special conditions and circumstances that don't result from the action of the applicant, they stated that the parent parcel shape dimensions were created at least as early as 1994. The applicant acquired the subject property in 2019, and the applicant therefore didn't create the special condition or circumstance affecting the shape of the parent parcel. Staff agreed, saying that the property was first described back in 1994, and then after the lot line adjustment in 1995, the legal description of the property has not changed. The applicant acquired the property in 2019, like they stated. While the applicant is requesting to split the lot in a manner that requires a depth to width ratio variance, they did not, however, create the existing layout of the property or the placement of the existing roadway. Lastly, in regards to the conflict with the public interest and safety, the applicant stated that the proposed lot configurations will have no effect on neighboring properties because each property will maintain direct frontage on and direct access to Bishop's Bay Lane. Consequently, the proposed longer and narrower lots are of no consequence, meaning that each lot and potential building sites thereon remain accessible. Drainfield easements have been reserved benefiting the subject property. Access will remain with several hundred feet of road frontage for each proposed lot. Accordingly, the proposed depth to width ratios do not create public interest conflicts. Staff agreed, stating that the proposed depth to width variance is not proposing an encroachment on the street nor the neighboring property lines. All setbacks will be required to be met for any development along with the development permit. No comments were received at the time of the staff report from agencies or the public in regards to any concerns for the public health, safety, or welfare. A stormwater management plan was not required for this variance, as it does not result in creation of additional impervious surface. Only 2 comments were received for this variance. DEQ just stated they didn't have a comment, and then after the staff report was complete, Panhandle Health District did submit a comment, essentially just stating that the applicant should contact them to do site evaluations. The application was sent to the neighbor within 300 feet of the subject property on August 18th, and no one commented. So the subject property is an unplatted 20+ acre parcel. It's zoned R5 and has a land use designation of rural residential. The property is vacant. It was first described in 1994 and had a lot line adjustment in 1995. The applicants acquired the property in 2019. Bishop's Bay Lane is private, bordering on the property along the eastern property line and a portion of the southern property line. Lake Pend Oreille borders the property to the west. There is a site evaluation on file with Panhandle Health District. Proposed lot would have a width of 291 feet, and proposed lot 2 would have a width of 266 feet, both requiring a depth to width of 3:1. That's why we're having this variance. The proposed depth to width ratio exceeds the maximum ratio of 4:1 for lots that would even be greater than the 300 feet in width. The applicant is wanting to create 2 waterfront lots, which will require the depth to width ratio variance to do so. Both proposed lots would meet the lot size minimum of 5 acres. As lot 1 would be approximately 8.7 acres, and lot 2 would be approximately 70.6 acres. which is our lot design. Based upon findings of fact, the part of the property that do not apply generally control. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant, and the granting of the variance is not in conflict with public interest, and that it will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity of the subject parcel or lot. The conditions of approval for this
Sorry, someone is muting us from the outside, so we're trying to fix it. Yeah. No, not right now.
Oh, okay.
We're good now.
Our standard, only the development highlighted on the site plan has been reviewed with variance standards. All of the development shown must comply with Bonner County Revised Code. No variance or any other administrative waiver shall be applied for in regards to setbacks for the approved proposed lots. At time of land division application, all required documents shall be submitted to the Bonner County Planning Department for review and approval. And at time of land division application, file B0022-20 shall be referenced on the final plat. Staff concluded that this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code and the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends approval of the variance request subject to the conditions identified in the staff report and during deliberation. The decision rests with the governing body after the completion of the public hearing and consideration of all relevant oral and written testimony evidence. This concludes my presentation.
Questions for staff?
Would it be recorded on the plat because it's larger than the?
Because it's a deviation from the required depth to width for our code. So if in the future there was an issue and they were wondering why it's laid out, is why it was allowed, that would be the reference to why it was allowed.
Good practice, I like
Just a good record keeping.
that. Yeah. Yes. What happened back? Whatever, anyway, very good. Okay, thank you. So now.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Marty Taylor, certified land use planner with Kingsley Stool and Associates, helping out the Hoops Myers this evening. Yes, this variance request is preparatory to a minor land division. Minor land division is administrative, so you would see that. But I wouldn't want to make application for the minor land division and then have the variance not be approved, so we can do it backwards. And thanks to Tessa, she did a thorough job in her analysis. Just quickly on legislative intent, the reason that the depth to width design standard was crafted around 1995 was so that we didn't end up with long and skinny lots or lots with what we call dog legs or flags, such that you couldn't drive to the building site without crisscrossing over your neighbor's property. So when you have a more uniform square or somewhat rectangular property, it's of sufficient width, and you don't end up trespassing on your neighbor's property and trying to get to your building site via some 20 or 30-foot wide flag lot, is the term that you probably heard. So that's the background behind that depth to width standard, and it's been working pretty well for about 25 years. And both of the lots as proposed, you can see have between 307 and 556 feet of frontage. So we have lots of room to get off of Bishop's Lane and to potential building site. The survey site plan was based on field work, so it's survey accurate, and it does show that as-built road. I thought that was important to show the features so that you could confirm that we're not losing buildability just because the lots are a little bit narrow. There are
building sites that are upland of wetlands. Not that you can't get authority to fill a wetland, but if you can develop a site that's not a wetland, that's preferable. And building site development within a floodplain that you folks don't see because that's an administrative process. It just requires two things. One is elevation, and the other is the use of flood damage resistant materials, so that's not a big deal either. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would rely on the application materials for the rest of the analysis that I put together in defense of how the project complies with the variance standards, and would respectfully request approval of the variance, finding that it is in accord with those three variance standards of hardship. And this isn't a special privilege anymore as a conflict with the public. Thanks.
Okay, questions for Mr. Taylor? I just have one comment, and I understand it doesn't matter in this case where the site was not approved. The town health department under file number states that that's not what we're after. That's not our review.
Thanks, Pat. I kind of had a chuckle with Tessa late this afternoon. The comment was authored September 8th, and we received it on the 17th. So that's less than timely. But regardless, I appreciate the health department's comment, even though it's completely irrelevant to tonight's proceeding. That's okay. It's still good information. And the reason that I even referenced former health department permits in my work was to let you know that if this property is to be eligible for development through the minor land division and depth variance processes, that we're not creating yet more undevelopable land in the county because we have enough property which can't build on. So that was the purpose by my letting the world know that I happen to have been involved in the mid-90s with the site valuations on these neighboring properties to the east. And so I had that database to recognize that we did dig in the dirt years ago. And the soils are restricted, absolutely. So we appreciate the health department's comment, and we'll deal with that when we go to the house. Thanks, man.
Any questions?
Anyone here tonight wish to say anything on this file? Anything? Nobody wants? Okay. Then we'll not look for any rebuttal, any comments. And we'll open for deliberation. Look at these kind of boxes. Nebraska, flat, square. Oh, curvy. Yeah. There are lakes and things in Nebraska. Good night. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I didn't really get develop it.
All right. Well, yeah. I was curious, the existing lot, the 20 acres or so, that doesn't even look like 3 to 1. Not even close.
I didn't do the house on the home one. It probably does because it's so big, but this, even though this is going to deviate from the depth to width requirement, it's not going to cause the problem that standard was created. We're not creating this 50-foot wide little strip that is going to require more variances and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It's close.
Yeah.
Well, okay, any comments, Suzanne?
No, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Bradish. I move to approve this project file B0022-20 of 4.5 to 1 depth to width ratio where 3:1 is required for lot 1 and the 4.7 to 1 depth to width ratio where 3:1 is required for lot 2, finding that it is in accordance with Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and based upon the evidence submitted at the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. The action that can be taken to obtain the variance is to conclude the condition of approval as adopted. This action is not result in the taking of private property.
To approve project B 22-20. Ratio variance. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bailey, for the record, I'll second Mr. Bradish's motion.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Aye.
I believe aye. Okay. All right, the motion passes, the variance is approved. Thank you for time. On to the next file, which apparently we're going backwards. So this is file B20-20, side yard setback. Any conflicts on this one? Okay, and it's the same procedure setup we've seen all evening, so no surprises there. Therefore, based on that first dot, we're in staff report.
Alright, so this is a setback variance. The noticing was sent out on August 18th to the newspaper, agencies, and neighbors, and the site posting happened on September 10th. The applicants are requesting a 3-foot property line setback where 40 feet is required to allow for the construction of a lean-to addition to an existing barn on a 17.18 acre parcel. The property is known suburban, has a land use designation of suburban growth area, and is within the area of city impact for the city of Santa Fe. The property is used in a residential capacity, as are other properties in the same vicinity. The property was developed with a home and multiple accessory buildings and a barn in the 1970s and 2016 per Bonner County Assessor Records. The site is served by an individual septic system, Syringa Heights Water Association, Northside Fire District, and Vista Utilities. Syringa Creek flows through the southwest portion of the property where there are slopes between 15 to 29% and 30% or greater in grade, and fresh waters, forested, shrub wetlands are present. This is the lot that I'm showing here. One, because there are so many environmental factors on there. On the left-hand side, that purple is the wetlands, and then on the right-hand side, that's showing that where the water is, where the wetlands are, there is a floodplain down there, but the building is nowhere near down there. So for conditions that apply to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone or vicinity, the applicant stated, sorry, my internet is acting weird. The only outbuilding on our 17+ acre is the existing grandfathered barn / lean-to structure that was on our property when we purchased it in 2002. We had no control over where this building was built, and after living on the property 18 years, have exceeded the storage capacity of this structure. To solve our issue, we would like to add on a lean-to to the north side of the existing structure. The simplest, most logical way to add onto this building is to use the existing barn supports and match the existing roof line, so that is why we're asking for the side yard variance. Staff responded that the applicants obtained the property in 2002. The structure the proposed lean-to is to be added to was built in the 1970s. The existing barn sits 3.5 feet away from the property line The proposed addition of the lean-to would also be sitting at the same distance. The required side property line setback for agricultural structures is 40 feet regardless of the zoning. Even if the existing structure was considered to be a non-agricultural structure, the setback requirement would be 5 feet and a variance would still be required for the addition. A survey of the property from 2002 confirmed that the existing barn sits 3.5 feet away from the true property line. For special conditions and circumstances that do not result from the actions of the applicant, they stated that they purchased the property in May 2002 with the existing barn lean-to already constructed on the property. They had the west property line survey done in May 2002, which showed that the barn lean-to was constructed to be 3.5 feet inside the side property line. The survey also notes that the existing old fence, which was probably the assumed property line, encroached on the side property line 4 feet 9 inches. The previous owner who constructed the structure may have thought this was the property line, or perhaps when the barn was constructed, there wasn't a 5-foot setback. Nevertheless, we would like to add a lean-to onto the north side of the existing barn that meshes up to the current barn lean-to footprint. The existing barn is 26 feet wide and 40 feet deep. The new lean-to would be 23 feet wide and 40 feet deep to exactly mirror the dimensions of the existing south side lean-to. The applicants obtained the property in 2002, well after the previous landowner had constructed structures from the 1970s. The applicants had no control over the placement of the existing barn as the previous property owner had it built. Lastly, for whether or not this is in conflict with the public interest, they stated that adding a lean-to to the north side of the existing barn will not be in conflict with public interest because the nearest public access road, which is Baldy Mountain, is approximately 1,000 feet away. Nor will the addition have any effect on the adjoining property because there are no existing buildings or improvements located near the existing barn lean-to. Only there's forest land that slopes down to Syringa Creek. The proposed addition to the lean-to will be approximately 1,000 feet south of Baldy Mountain Road per the provided site plan. The aerial view of the subject property and the neighboring property to the west shows there is no existing development on the neighboring property near the site that the proposed addition is planned. The proposed addition, being 1,000 feet away from Baldy Mountain Road, is not a threat to the road work going on, as it is not encroaching. It's also not encroaching on the neighboring property line to the west. The aerial view of the subject property and the neighboring property shows that there are no existing developments in the area, and there is a large portion of wetlands in Syringa Creek present, which causes its own setbacks for that property. The stormwater management plan is not required as the variance does not result in creation of additional impervious surface. These are the agencies that were noticed for commenting. The Idaho Department of Environmental Quality sent in that they have no comments, and Panhandle Health just sent in their signature with no comments. We did not receive any other comments from any other agencies, as we did not receive any public comments from neighbors. This parcel is 17.18 acres and located within the city of Sand Plains area C impact. The parcel is zoned suburban with a land use designation of suburban growth area. It is developed with in a residential manner with agricultural uses. All structures are from the 1970s except for 2 additions that were done in 2016. There are 2 permits on file with the Bonner County Planning Department. One, which is a declaration of exempt structure for an addition of the deck, and a building location permit from 2015 for an addition of the garage. The applicants obtained the property in 2002. The structure that the proposed addition is for is an existing barn from the 1970s. The survey from 2002 shows the existing barn sits at 3.5 feet away from the true property line. The lean-to addition will be a total of 920 square feet. Syringa Creek runs through the southwest portion of the parcel with freshwater forested shrub wetlands and slopes ranging between 15 to 30% and greater in grade or present. And the site is served by individual septic, Syringa Heights Water Association, Northside Fire District, and the city utilities. Our conclusions are that conditions apply to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone or vicinity, which which conditions are a result of lot size, shape, topography, or other circumstances over which the applicant has no control. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. And the granting of the variance is not in conflict with the public interest, and that it will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injure to properties or improvements in the vicinity of the subject parcel or lot. I only had one condition of approval, and that is that the applicant must file a declaration of exemption with the planning department for the proposed development. Staff concluded that this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code and the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends approval of the variance request, subject to the conditions identified in the staff report and during the deliberation. And the decision rests with the governing body after the completion of the public hearing and consideration of all relevant oral and written testimony. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions for staff?
I have a question just for your, you didn't require a stormwater management plan instead of
The variance isn't causing it. That'll be at the, yeah, so that will be reviewed at the time of. Sorry, I should have clarified that. Variances aren't causing it.
I have one question to ask, and it appears that the snow coming off that roof is not going to be fugitive, it's going to go north and south.
Okay, thank you. So, do we have the applicant here? Okay, if you want to add anything to it?
You guys want them out?
No. I'm Travis Ball, and yeah, we're just looking to put lean-to onto our property there to store additional equipment for our use. And, we support 100% what this down. So to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience care to testify in this file? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so no rebuttal, so we'll close the public testimony and open up the deliberation.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, I move to approve this project file B0020-20, a 3-foot property line setback variance for 40 feet is required to allow for the construction of a lean-to addition on the existing barn, finding that it is in accord with the Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law. Based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the following findings of facts and conclusions of law as written. The action that could be taken to attain the variance is complete with conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in taking a private property.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve file B 20-20.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Daly, for the record, I will second the motion. Commissioner Linscott.
Motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion about the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so the variance is granted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so next case file is modification file 2-20, modification in terms of conditional use for 909-080 and so
Alrighty. So again, this was.
Excuse me, conflict of interest? No conflict anyway. Okay, very good.
So this is a modification of a conditional use permit, specifically the condos at Priest Lake Golf Course, file C 909-08. This was routed for comment, and the site posting all happened on the same day, which was August 18th of this year. The applicant is proposing a modification to file C 909-08 to allow for 4 single-family dwellings and 2 garage buildings in lieu of the approved 8-unit condos and 2 garage buildings on lots 1 and 2 of Fairway 3 of condominium, which is lots 1 and 2 of Block 1, first addition to Priest Lake Golf Club Estates, which are both 0.617 acre lots. The lots are located in the recreation zone and have a land use designation of resort community, which is on lot 1, and neighborhood commercial, which is on lot 2. The site borders other residential properties, vacant land, and Priest Lake Golf Course. There are slopes up to 15% in grade on the site, and the sites are served by Priest Lake Golf Club Estates Water, Outlet Bay Sewer District, and Northern Lights. So we've got a couple more standard because this is for a modification to a conditional use permit, so quite a few more things had to be looked at. For number 1, single-family dwellings are permitted use within the recreation zone. Multifamily dwellings, such as the previously approved 8-unit condos, required a conditional use permit with note 6, stating multifamily dwellings with a minimum of 12,000 square feet of lot area for the unit plus 3,000 square feet for each additional unit, provided that all urban services are available. As the lots have urban water and urban sewer, the lot size minimum is 12,000 square feet. Each lot is essentially close to 27,000 square feet. So they are allowed 2 single-family dwellings and 1 accessory dwelling unit and 1 permanent RV spot. For the density and dimensional standards for our recreation zone, again, lot size minimum is 12,000 square feet. Due to the site being served by urban water and sewer, the required setbacks for the cabins and garages are 25 feet from the edge of the easement of Fairway Drive and 5 feet from all other property lines. The allowed lot coverage is still 35%. For our parking standards, for residential single-family dwellings, the minimum requirement for parking is having 2 spaces per dwelling unit on the same lot as the dwelling unit at 200 square feet in area. There are 2 two-car garages, 1 on each lot proposed, and each lot provides adequate space for additional parking to meet the need for the other 2 required off-street parking spaces. For our private road standards, the applicant is requesting to remove the requirement from the original file of having to pave Fairway Drive. Under the approved conditional use file, road improvements were proposed, which were those interior driveway will be built to West Priest Lake Fire District and Bonner County standards with a 22-foot wide travel surface on a 30-foot wide ingress, egress, and utility easement. Fairway Road will be improved to meet county standards by adding a paved travel surface. The roads will have standard drainage with maximum and typical grades of 8%. As Fairway Drive is a county-owned road and not a private road, it is not required to meet the Bonner County Revised Plans of Private Road Standards Manual, which is our Appendix A of Title 12. The proposed paving of Fairway Drive is to bring the road up to the county standards and is able to be removed as a condition. KP Court is a private road giving access from Fairway Drive to lots 1 and 2, and will need to meet the private road standards of Appendix A for high-density private roads. KP Court is considered a high-density private road due to it being a private access road in an area zone for lot parcel sizes of 12,000 square feet in size on the official Bonner County zoning map. Since there are 2 comprehensive plan designations, that's why you're seeing 2 explanations here. Neighborhood commercial provides light commercial uses to serve the needs of the rural communities and towards trade without adversely affecting residential neighborhoods. Urban services and primary transportation systems such as the state highways or major and minor collector roads are required. Resort community provides for urban light densities for areas centered around the recreational areas developed for winter and water sports, golf and hiking, where urban services are provided. A stormwater management plan was required during the original conditional use permit, and the plan was by Ryan Forbes, who provided the required calculations and infiltration rates and proposed using a combination of conveyance channels and grass infiltration areas to stabilize the stormwater runoff from the proposed impervious surfaces raised from that proposal. As the applicant is requesting to have 4 single-family cabins, 2 on each lot instead of the multi-family condos, the impervious surface will be similar if not reduced, causing a new stormwater management plan to not be required for the proposal pursuant to our Bonner County Revised Code 12-7.43K. Following agencies were routed for comment and returned a no comment letter or an actual comment. The Road and Bridge Department, we had a conversation. Matt Mulder wanted just some clarification on what was required in the original file before making his decision. He stated that following our conversation, that Road and Bridge does not object to the release of the condition requiring that Fairway Drive be paved. Road and Bridge does not typically require developers to pave the county maintained roads adjacent to their projects. Road and Bridge's concerns originally were that if the road was to be paved, it needed to be done in accordance with the standards set forth in Bonner County Road Standard Manual. If the county releases them from the condition to pave, no further action is required to satisfy the Road and Bridge requirement. Panhandle Health and the Q both stated that they did not have any comments. The rest of the agencies that were routed did not respond. We also had no public comment on this file as well. Subject lots are approximately 0.617 acres each. Subject lots are lot 1 and 2, Fairway 3, which are lots 1 and 2, block 1 of the first addition to Priest Lake Golf Club Estates. They're zoned recreation and have a land use designation of resort community for lot 1 and neighborhood residential for lot 2. Subject lots are accessed off Fairway Drive, a county-owned road, and KP Court, a private ingress, egress, and utilities easement. Subject lots are served by Outlet Bay Sewer District, Priest Lake Golf Club Estates, and the West Priest Lake Fire District, along with Northern Lights. The original conditional use permit, file C909-08, was approved with conditions by the Bonner County Planning and Zoning Commission at the August 5th, 2008 public hearing. For condition 1, the proposed conditional use permit is in accord with the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Condition 2, this proposal was reviewed for compliance with the criteria and standards set forth at Bonner County Revised Code. The proposed use will not create a hazard or will not be dangerous to persons on or adjacent to the property. For conclusion 3. With conditional use permits, we have standard conditions. That's what A1 through 4 are, about the use being developed and operated in accordance with their approved site plan, that the conditional use permit shall not supersede their deed restrictions, all county setbacks shall be met, and then the last one is that they have essentially 2 calendar years from the date of approval to start their use. The specific conditions that were created for this modification are that a minor notational change to the plat first addition to Priest Lake Golf Club Estates to amend or remove restriction number 1, which states lot 1 through 9, block 1, will be developed as one parcel for multi-family use to allow the development of the single-family dwellings proposed shall be submitted to the Bonner County Planning Department for review and approval. Right now, that is essentially a restriction on the use of these lots, saying that only the multi-family uses. Okay, this is requiring that to be removed so that they can have a single-family dwelling uses. A building location permit shall be required for each dwelling and accessory building proposed. At time of building location permit, all required documentation shall be submitted to the Bonner County Planning Department for review and approval. Condition B3 of file C909-08, requiring the improvement of paving Fairway Drive shall no longer be required. The private road KP Court shall be developed per Bonner County Revised Code Title 12 Appendix A Private Road Standards Manual for high-density private roads if not already completed. And all conditions required per file C909-08 shall be complied with except for those modified or removed by file NOD 0002-1. Staff concluded this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code based upon the following. The subject lots, lot 1, 2, Fairway 3, Block 1 First Edition to Priest Lake Golf Club Estates are 0.617 acres each and located in the recreation zone with a land use designation of resort community is neighborhood commercial. The applicant is requesting to modify and include conditional use permit to allow for the construction of 4 single-family dwelling cabins and 2 garage buildings in lieu of the approved 8-unit condos and 2 garage buildings. The applicant is also requesting to modify the approved file C909-08 to have the condition requiring the paving of Fairway Drive to be removed. The change of dwelling type from multifamily to single-family is a less impactful use as there will be a maximum of 2 families per lot instead of the originally approved 4 families per lot. The paving of Fairway Drive, a county-owned and maintained road, was a proposal of the applicant for that file and not a requirement or recommendation of the Bonner County Road and Bridge Department at that time. All of the conditions and requirements of file C909-08 still stand. Staff concluded this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code and Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit request subject to the conditions identified in the staff report and during deliberation. The final decision rests with the governing body after the completion of the public hearing and consideration of all relevant oral and written testimony. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff while she still has some wind left? I don't care. Okay, all right. Okay, are you the applicant?
I am.
Would you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll
to
just,
that?
I'll say that.
Okay.
The waiting is quiet, I say something.
Yeah.
Chris Pereira, I'm the owner developer and contractor on the project. I started this project back in 2005 and stopped doing possession. The 2-phase project, we're completing the first phase of the fund, which is the condominiums, which have been very well received. We downsized that as well. It was a 4-unit condo on top of a duplex, and we want to reduce the density, including 4 cabins. The actual square footage of the cabin footprint would be 500 square feet less per lot than the condos would have been. Those are 13, 1,400 square foot cabins. We think it's more conducive with us one on the lake. The Memorial Garden right next door, we're trying to create a little bit nicer environment. So that's the reason we're doing this. As you all know, Priest Lake's a difficult environment to work in, and so 15 years is long enough. I need to kick this can down the road and keep going. So anyway, that's thank you for your consideration, and if you have any questions, if you want to have to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant? We had a very, very interesting situation of actually getting less density. As you heard earlier, all our subcommittees are grappling with that question.
Yeah.
And pretty much to every committee, they said, no, keep the density low. And so here we are with a case that continues to lower the density on the property, which again, it comes down to selling them to units. And if you've got buyers that are interested in that.
And what I found is with the deed property going private, the cost of owning the lake is risen so much that now these cabins are more desirable. I can get back to the point where I get the price points I need. And I'm actually keeping more of them for myself, so I'm kind of being selfish. What do I want for my living environment? And now the economy will support lower density, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, the dynamic has changed by the entirely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think there's any public who needs to testify. So we'll open up the discussion. Pretty straightforward. Ready for a motion?
Commissioner Bradish, I move to approve this file MOD 0002-20 to modify C909-08 to allow for the construction of 4 cabins and 2 garages in lieu of the approved 8-unit condos and 2 garages, along with deletion of the requirement to pay a federal drive, finding that it is in accord with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and based upon evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing, I further move to adopt the following findings of facts and conclusions of law as written. The action that can be taken to obtain this condition met with to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in taking of private property.
Motion on the floor to approve file MOD 2-20.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. So, that modification. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a 1 minute recess?
Yes.
I don't see it on here. So we have to add it. I don't see it on here. I don't see it on here.
Oh, yeah.
Up or down? Oh.
I think that's a good move, that this book went out of the way first. Not out of the way, but, you know.
I'm gonna miss you, honestly. You really like a pretty good job.
Somebody else is willing to stick with the opinion on that.
Is the house done?
Almost, about a month. So.
Finding out what was bid months ago?
Yeah, but I got most of the stuff in before all this stuff started happening and purchased. So thankfully, I think really impact.
Lumber and steel.
Since when? Yeah, we've been talking about that. We're wondering how water's even staying profitable.
Were they building the White Cliff was kind of large valley.
But it's safe, yeah.
Well, just look down, look up.
No, but it's nice because it's, you know.
It's way better
thick.
to use that. Now at least they're honest, they have all that stuff.
Only 15 minutes. Size or.
So that they have.
But they'll still get the.
No.
Okay, so the gravel.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Back to it. Okay, we're back in session at 7:22. September 17th. And we now have file DC 9-20, zone change suburban commercial, Hillcrest Golf Shop LLC. Any conflicts of interest on this one? I think so. Yeah, okay.
I don't.
Are you into it? Is that a good course? Hillcrest? Okay. All right. We'll go on. And there's no public here to catch the notice about what we do here tonight, so we're back to work.
So I think we had a good introduction here. We've got zone change number 9 for this year. It's a straight zone change in the comprehensive plan amendment. As stated, the applicant is Hillcrest Golf Shop LLC, and then we have a project representative, Robin. So a little bit about the project, if you are familiar with golf courses, this is out off of Highway 2. Essentially, the applicant is proposing to rezone approximately 3 acres of the parcel where there's actually a 4.97 parcel. So we've got a 5-acre parcel and only in 3 acres from suburban to commercial. And so you can see up there on the screen where the property line is on the aerial. And then right now we have a lot line adjustment in progress with the county to move that boundary line. So the boundary line adjusting about 1 acre of their property into the golf course. And then they're going to rezone 3 acres with the intention to put mini storage out there. That's the intent of this site. So the site is, the land use designation is neighborhood commercial, and the property is owned suburban, as I stated. So this zone change would be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And you can see there on the 2 maps that we've got neighborhood commercial there in the dotted pink, and then we've got transition right next door there to the east. And then in the zoning, we have suburban zone with kind of some zones, spot zones there in the commercial. So we started to see some, you may remember some of these zone changes from last year when we rezoned some of these to commercial, because there are businesses along that stretch. We've got the East River Glass Company and things like that along that section of it. So there's a vicinity map. I just wanted to point out, for the sake of our code, because it calls this out, that this site is actually located in between 2 areas of city impact. We've got East River there to the right, and then we've got Old Town to the left. So it's smack dab right in the middle, but not actually in any areas of city impact. So the comprehensive plan states that the neighborhood commercial area is designated to provide light commercial uses to serve the needs of rural communities. This is directly in line with the zone change that they're requesting. They are neighborhood commercial, and it is allowed to go to straight commercial zoning in the comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to do a side-by-side on the suburban district versus the commercial district. So we have existing and proposed. The suburban district has some similar things, some similar attributes where It's looking at hard surface roads with access to primary transportation routes. And it also calls out being adjacent to areas of city impact, which we've seen that this is not in the big area of city impact. It also talks about being located on the edges of cities that have the potential for urban services. This site does not have any urban services. It is on individual suburban subject. The commercial district, on the other hand, talks a lot about primary transportation routes, saying that this is appropriate in areas designated as neighborhood commercial or being growth or transition by the comp plan, which we have, and served at the time of development by adequate sewage disposal services, which for a mini storage facility would be pretty straightforward. We routed for agency on August 18th to the following districts as well as all taxing districts, so we get kind of a slew of comments when we do that. We had some outside jurisdictions of the city of Sandpoint for final comment because it's outside of their purview, the Independent Highway District, Conway Hospital District. Nothing in here, and the Panhandle Health District had no comment about the zone change, but did know that the applicant should reach out to the septic system. So nothing really relevant to the zone change. No other agencies responded, and we did not receive any public comments. So the zone change findings of fact in summary is that the zone change request is appropriate based off of the comments. The site does have two primary transportation routes. They've got highway frontage and then county road also cuts off along the east side. And we also received no adverse agency comments. And then the intent of the zone change is to provide for additional services to the adjacent area, which is consistent with the commercial district. It directly calls that out in the zoning code. So based off the findings of fact and the information contained in the staff report, staff does recommend approval of this file. I believe that's all I have. I went through that pretty quickly, so if the commission has any questions.
Any questions on that? All right, the vast public that's out there doesn't seem to want to comment, so. Okay.
No, I don't think Robin's here.
Yeah, apparently not. Okay. Okay. So then we'll go straight to deliberation. Anything to deliberate? No, it's straightforward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. This is Commissioner Kempton. I move to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on this project. File, order? Yeah, that's good for some. File ZC 0009-20, requesting a zone change from urban to commercial, finding that it is in accordance with general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code, as enumerated in the following conclusions of law, and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. Further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. This action does not result in taking of private property.
Motion on the floor to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on file ZC 9-20. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, I'll second that.
Motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion? No discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Thank you. So they do the recommendation to approve this final to the Board of County Commissioners. Okay, so that concludes our public hearing items. And we'll close the public hearing and we are in open line discussion. So,
Apparently I'm your only staff here right now.
well,
I think we have
how much is working here?
Yeah, where's
He's
Josh?
standing.
Come on down,
Josh is online here as well.
There's no order of anything in that sense, but we have, this is our, well, this is interesting. We've got the meeting with Sully next Thursday. The meeting that they have on Saturday, they call us tonight.
I do have a little bit of information on that meeting.
Okay.
Part
Saturday, the 19th.
Yeah, so what it looks like the flyer says is that we're doing like a come read the plan day. So I think they're gonna be furnishing the copies of the plan. I think since we saw that at the beginning of this week, we have around 200 copies with the best back to offer folks to read the plan on Saturday. So I don't know how they're hosting it or how it will work out, but I think the goal is just to get the word out in the community, you know, and
Okay, I just wonder what, we can't avoid having discussions about it. I mean, I would fully expect that they'll be hung out to dry if they don't talk to people. So, well, let's cover next Thursday first. That's a meeting that, at least that meeting is one that Planning and Zoning Commission hosts and introduces the panel that the committee has, quote, hired, put in place by. Well, I'm thinking we should, because.
So we're not gonna be able to advertise it correctly and we're putting ourselves out for that.
Okay, so a change of venue is what happened. And that can't be adequately advertised.
It can't be advertised until Tuesday.
Okay, so.
There's another way to do it.
Well,
we have to stay within the state law. For us as a group, we have to live with your decision.
I mean, it's basically a workshop, right?
Right.
So we advertised it out of respect for the Fellow Valley Committee to help them get their word out there. We really didn't have to advertise a workshop at all. So it hasn't been agendized yet.
Did I hear you say it didn't need to be posted?
No, it didn't need to be advertised in the feed. It just needs to be posted. So maybe you guys are fine.
Well,
So I would think that'd be a question to Mr. Wilson. Would that be correct?
yes, we had a similar discussion this morning with him, but these developments hadn't come across our table until after he left. So I think we might just need to revisit with him and double check.
So if we can get an email tomorrow or for Monday, so we can plan our schedule as a group for next week, that would be appreciated.
We can go ahead and agendize it and then run it in the paper boat, and maybe that'll cover us for open meeting.
well,
Because normally all we do for your guys' workshops is agendize them. That's all we ever do.
right.
So we have ample time to agendize it correctly.
Hey, can I throw my 2 cents out there? So I live up here in the Grouse Creek area. I go through the Sally Valley. I buy my groceries at convenience stores sometimes. I buy gas in that area and everything else. If I wasn't a part of this, I honestly would not know what's going to happen. It's not out there. There's a lot of Facebook pages that are not tied to it, like Sally Valley Neighbors and stuff like that. And I don't know how we get it out there. That would be a really good avenue. But I'm going to tell you, if I didn't have a participation here, I would not know what's going to happen.
I've talked with people out there as well, and they kind of knew about it, about the whole action, but they didn't know about the meetings. And
right.
Even the previous group in here tonight with that case, yeah, they didn't acknowledge that a meeting or action was happening. So, all right. So number one.
It's not it's not our place to put it out there, but if that committee wanted it out there, they know. You could go to the farm stands and talk to those folks and maybe put up a little poster, put it up at Sally Valley Creamery, put it up at the wood stand, you know, all the different little stands, and let people know and have it posting, but they're not. It's like it's so invisible.
And that's almost like changing the venue last minute.
Well,
That's their choice.
yeah, and I like the fact that the meeting is gonna be held in the area rather than there. I don't know that it doesn't, who knows whether people would find it less advantageous to go all the way to the fairgrounds from Sully Valley or just go down to Oak Hall.
Yeah, but that's not within the geographic area.
Well, it's close, I mean, it's on the other side of the highway. Yeah, I mean, it's not short of having the other public space, which is the elementary school, which is not available. So,
I just go back to what I said, we just need clarification from the legal department that we can all do.
so that's the other question. Would, number one, if less than a quorum of the commission is there, we're not making a decision workshop. So we could all be there over once. Doesn't matter in that sense. I feel a strong obligation to be there on the citizens' behalf to let them know the ropes. I don't know that they get it from the committee. Just to say who, you know, why are we here, who are we? That's why I made the point of saying when that gentleman said you elected officials. I'm back saying, we are volunteers, they are volunteers. Make that clear, let them know what the rules are, why we get into this whole thing, what's expected, what the code says, etc. Lay that out to the public, and then introduce the committee, have it, say your piece, and then explain what's going to follow. At some point, it will come before this body, and we still don't, I don't know if we absolutely concluded that it'll be a workshop with us first, and then a hearing, or what?
So we won't be Zooming or YouTubing now.
No.
Because there's no internet available.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, you know, how did we ever survive? Days
Well,
previous.
Suzanne.
But Suzanne, I don't know. To me, to have, so Suzanne, you don't live in the boundary, within the boundary, is that correct?
I live up here by the case that you heard as case number 1.
Yeah. Right.
I live a stone's throw from there.
3 or so miles away from the boundary of the Sully Valley.
Right.
And lives with,
I think it cut off right about close to Western Pleasure,
right.
and so I am like a mile from there.
Mr. Linscott, Commissioner Linscott, you own property in the area we're talking about, is that correct? Okay.
So,
well, didn't the last map cut off right about Western Pleasure?
the one that's in their report is their official map.
Yeah.
So you'll have to look at that. It's, I forget the eastern boundary, you know, but it's there and it's discernible what it is. And that is the map, the one that's in their document. So for their workshop exhibits, especially now we're not going to have internet available to bring stuff up, it's unfortunate, but yeah. So static displays their proposed boundary map and then their proposed land use designation map. That, I don't know what else would be advantageous other than existing comp plan stuff. And it's comp plan, everybody's going to be concentrating on zoning, of course. And that's not what this is about, so I got to explain that, or somebody has to explain that.
With them explaining their analysis.
Yeah, well, no, I looked at it again today, this morning after I talked with Milton. And the strength of those letters they got from Odin Water and Colburn Water and let's see, about Fire District, you know, that the evidence is there. I stumbled along with their stated conclusions about the evidence that they drew from those letters. It's a little weak, but I think the basis is there to say overall, okay, you know, here's the reasons why we're not recommending. They got to explain the whole thing about the less than 10 acre lots array that's all over the Sully planning area, what that means. They've got to explain why they said certain things the way they said them. That's all up to them. I said presentation. So, who, I didn't, when I read the article today, I didn't read it close enough so I didn't realize what they said Saturday was the first round of this reveal. And then I'd hate to have us walk in next Thursday night, having had something happen on Saturday that we weren't part of.
Well, it doesn't even say in the newspaper, it doesn't say anything about Saturday. The newspaper article says it's September 24th, 5:30 at the fairgrounds.
Right, but then.
Right.
That's fine, it was the fairground.
Right,
We
right.
were in town today, and it was not.
And where did I read something right after that? Might have been something, and I just read it because I thought it said, it's Thursday, it's 10 to 2. But I specifically read 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and something later today. Might have been read. Anyway, since it was advertised for the fairgrounds, should somebody be here at the fairgrounds to say, wow, meeting's over at Oak Hall? We're not gonna have. I know, it's a, yeah, and it's at the same time. Are we set for 5:30 at the fairgrounds? I thought it was 5:30. So I could be there at 5:30 and just say, go. That's 6.
It's not responsibility.
I know, no.
If someone could make a sign and hang it up on the PM.
Yeah.
Meetings can be.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't go those days. And even then.
So if I may, what if it gets sent out there by the county, it goes to legals. And I'm going to tell you, there's like 2% of us weirdos that read the legals, okay? But if it's in like over on the front page on tidbits, I don't know how to get it there or what you have to do. But then it would be like, hey, this meeting is going to happen and we had to change a venue and this is where you got to go. People read that.
Yeah, but it's front page, easy to read, quick. Yep.
Well, it's kind of interesting too. Not highlighted in their letter here. You're talking about their analysis. I guess this was Betty Anderson. She also said that it was the goal of the committee to come up with a plan that would maintain the valley's designation of agricultural and to keep out growth. I mean, it's like, but back on this map, you know, I really discussed it with Brian. In our bylaws that were adopted February 7th, 19, and they had their boundaries, and we specifically told them that we're going to be handling the area of city impact. Geographic boundaries of sub-area may extend to the limits of any city or another sub-area for purpose of subject information. What does it say? Yeah, right below, we're going to be handling all areas, all comprehensive plan updates for the areas of city impact, Dover, Sanford, Pioneer, County will be under the direct authority of the commission. That was on February 7th, and then on February, yeah, something like that. Let's see here. Fred came and discussed with us on behalf of the committee regarding shrinking the ACI. Back in the bylaws, before we changed any of their geographic areas, it says sub-area boundaries remain fixed and may only be amended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee may propose an amendment to the sub-area boundaries of the P&Z Commission for review and action. We had to take action in order for them to change that geographic. I have the minutes from every meeting for the last 4 years right here. It never happened.
Yeah, the boundary. Okay, I was thinking that one of the things that the committee wanted to do when Fred came was, at one time, the boundary was pretty far up to the east. It would have been up to Suzanne's area or, up Gold Creek and so forth. And then that came down out of the foothills to the valley. I thought that was one reason for change. And then I now call, yes, the ACI discussion. Why should we be restricted to this somewhat non-defendable ACI boundary that could be put out there back in the 70s? When we may, and then start to know. Anyway. Well.
So we've got some legal issues too.
All right, but we're up against the time frame. We're going to have something Saturday and then next Thursday. Anybody interested in going Saturday?
From 10 to 2?
Yeah. It's gonna rain. At this point, unless I am legally advised otherwise, I will go on Saturday. And just, I either take the temperature or play fireman if I need to.
We just got on a budget.
Yeah, if you would, that would be helpful.
If we run it as an admin tidbit, then we'll keep it about that faster too.
True, true. I think that's true. What about next Thursday? Is that the same discussion?
That's what I'm talking
or
about.
is that?
No, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, Saturday, that's up to them, but I feel compelled in issues of fairness and protection to keep there. We do have a stake in this. Okay, all right, enough about that.
We need to make sure that we're doing things for sure.
Yeah.
Our stuff.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because there are overarching state code sections that apply. But when you look at the land use code and that simple sentence in there that says the commission may hire, would be lovely to move if you help us. Doesn't go any further than that. Doesn't say, and they all shall comply with state code everywhere that is appropriate. Well, obviously that happens, but I don't know. Would argue the other way.
Well, in the bylaws, we did say they have to adhere to the open meeting laws.
Open meeting laws, yeah. But, and that's why, based on that, I still argue that anything that they did, we needed to be appraised of it because they're working for us. It's just a grow. So, yeah, go too far from that.
That's what I think, yeah. When we're just going broke. And showing up and accusing that is going to get worse.
Well, another one was this past Tuesday's episode was all about commissioners.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other part that I want to see if I can undo with the public. At this point and forward until any subcommittees after it was before them with a recommendation from us, I can read that right out of the code. the Board of County Commissioners has no business commenting on or doing anything with the comprehensive plan amendment until we have made a recommendation to them on it. Period. Matter of fact, that could get it all thrown out, haywire. And I've told, I mentioned that to the Board of County Commissioners and got answered, oh yeah, we understand. Oh, but then they go ahead and have, it was open mic, so it's just, they gotta have, like, say their stuff.
And there's no way to go back and listen to that?
Well, right, so.
No, I've requested that we all get either audio or written comments that were made for staff, for members of us, and towards leadership. We can have it for peace of mind of what is going on.
Yeah, we need to be appraised of.
And it's our right under the Freedom of Information Act to have that.
Okay, so we'll wait to see what we get, if anything, from our legal opinion from Bill about participation.
However, it's not all right to throw us under the bus and we have nothing to do with the screw. And it would be nice to see a retraction on that. Take enough heat out of this.
Yeah, okay. All right, other things. So as far as Planning and Zoning Commission meetings to handle files, this is our last meeting in September. Correct? We don't have another one. We have a meeting next Thursday, and we don't even really know what that is. So our first meeting in October is when we, that's our new session, new leadership. So we'll be selecting a new chair. And if I remember right, we have operated in the past where the president chair opens that meeting and then it goes beyond that to election. So the end of anyone's session is tonight. It's up to you whether you participate next week or not. That's you sure there. But I want to thank you for being part for your session and well wishes for your new life in Boundary County. How's it going?
It's going great. Yeah. They just eliminated the planning department up there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
They just opened it 2 years ago.
Fireworks. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Well, when I say eliminated, it's not actually officially eliminated. It's just the one-man show retired effective today.
Yeah, well, he was headed that way anyway. But
He was 78.
as an individual.
He was doing it as like just something on the side. And he got totally overwhelmed, no support. So he said that's it, walked away. And there's no way to replace it. There's nothing, no plan. So it's pretty awesome.
John will give you a letter of recommendation.
It's great.
Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you for your service to the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I know it was, as with all of us, it's a bit of a learning curve. You don't know what's going on. It's interesting. I don't know did I read this in the article in the paper where Fred said, we're not versed in land use. Well, neither are we.
Yeah, 4 years, Fred.
Yeah. I mean, come on, get up to speed. Neither are we. We're not professionals. They are. And I've explained that, and I'll explain it again at these meetings. We rely on Bonner County Planning and Zoning staff to facilitate our meetings, give us information, help us put things together, because we're not professionals. We're stuck with decision-making based on facts and evidence and so forth. But no, we're not either, so. Does anybody know if there's been applications for involvement with the, how many we got? More people have said they'd like to be on the board. So,
Is it just mine? It's just one position?
no, it's two. We have one at large and.
It's mine and yours.
Yeah, okay. One at large and then. So, let's see, so does everybody remember when their terms are up? 2022, Matt?
I'm guessing 2021. Because they're 3 years, right?
Yeah. Do we have it listed out anywhere?
Yeah.
Is it?
Right now.
Ooh, can we bring up the website? I'm curious. Don't do that, because I can't remember whether I'm.
I found it. Yeah.
Oh, you gotta
I
get
think
it.
I've got,
You're gonna determine. We're gonna move second first order. I moved it down.
That's enough. No, we've already stressed it once.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Okay, I will. No, we already changed it once. My name's not Coop. My name is Donald, but that's all, I'm not going, but I'm not going to.
You're not gonna be like pretty good. We're just gonna call you Sliver.
The Donalds of the world are going to go.
And James is another one.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, we did.
No. You listen to this, Suzanne.
Yes? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
Yeah, we're still here. All right,
So Cheryl is 2021, Dawn is 22, Matt is 21, Taylor is 22, and Suzanne is 22.
wow. All right.
Here's a sophomore.
Yeah, 2 more years. Okay, all right. Anything else? I'm trying to be important. Nothing else. All right, it is now, let's wait. And 8 o'clock, we're done.
Where they don't have to go, he's all dressed up. You know,
Yeah.
training. He's trying to raise the bar around here. All the flowers.
Did you start live streaming?
Yeah.
Just do it from your Zoom.